Hey everybody, it's Charlie with 4BZ Truth. Just hanging out with my little guy on a Sunday afternoon, and we're walking, kind of a rainy day out in Boise, Idaho, and just thought I'd weigh in on a couple things as far as, not bad, the state of the world as far as the oppression of people like black people and white privilege. I actually wanted to talk a little bit about that, tell a little bit of a story about my background. You know, when you think of kind of a hillbilly redneck type situation, I was not raised into a redneck situation as far as like farmers go, but I will admit that I was around other people that were very racist, white supremacist type people, and I actually feel like I have never felt in any way like I disliked people of other ethnicities, but I did feel kind of uncomfortable with certain people when I was growing up, because that's kind of the way it was presented to me. Not so much that I had any kind of privilege, but it was more, you know, we kind of segregate from one another. Yeah, it's a puppy. And anyways, I started feeling like, you know, growing up, you know, I'll admit it. I mean, my best friend in junior high and high school was mulatto or half black, and you know, I admit that you know, my friend Brian, his situation was a little more difficult because well, for one thing, he was half black, not just, I mean, he was white and black mix. His mom was white and his dad was black. And I feel like his situation was even harder than just a normal black person. Normal as in, you know, straight up, you know, black dad and black mom. But, you know, I don't know if, well, the fact that we were like best friends in high school kind of goes to show that, you know, I don't have any feelings, ill feelings toward black people or anything like that, but I actually feel like my conditioning kind of played into you know, feeling like there was a sense of segregation, but I kind of stepped out of that mold, you know, as I was formed into my mold, my societal mold. I started realizing that you know, there is no real separation. I'm trying to multitask, by the way. My little guy, he's just kind of walking down the sidewalk. I want to make sure that he's not getting, you know, out of line here. But anyways, so here's the deal. This is where I'm at now. I never felt like I had any kind of privilege in the sense that you know, I'm trying to be honest with myself when I say this, and honest with everybody else in their perspective, because I actually, you know, I guess to some degree I had a sort of privilege, but I was brought up in a very abusive environment. Not only was there a lot of sexual molestation and stuff, but there was also you know, there was you know, a lot of segregation going on inside the house that I grew up in. Segregation in the sense that, you know, I was personally not accepted because as a young child, I actually created a division in the house that I was growing up in, and so I was hated by my stepmom. I was hated in a lot of ways by my stepfamily in general, and they're the ones that were, you know, trying to act like they were superior as far as racial ethnicity, but I didn't associate with them. You know, stepfamily was stepfamily. I never really felt like they were me in any way, but in that sense I was actually very you know, I was actually I feel like I wasn't given privilege in that sense. But I guess as a white person growing up, yeah, you could say, you know, the cops didn't hone in on me as like I wasn't a black or a Mexican in the sense that, you know, they stereotyped me. But my situation sucked growing up, really sucked. You know, I didn't have any privilege in my own household, but I guess as an ethnicity in the world, maybe I did. Maybe that's true. You know, and I'm trying to, you know, give credit or you know, analyze this from the perspective of, you know, wearing the other side of the spectrum. You know, wearing their shoes. You know, if I was black, what would that look like? I'm going to say that it's probably going to be a similar environment. You know, I could have been molested as a black kid, or I could have been molested as a freaking Hispanic kid. And honestly, it was equally abusive, whatever ethnicity it would have ended up being. And you know, I just want to feel like, you know, people are given a fair, equal opportunity, and I was not given an equal opportunity personally, but maybe white people are given, you know, more of an edge. But when I grew up in well, from 17 on, I actually moved from Southern California up to Idaho, and in Caldwell, there was a large, not a majority, I would say that there's probably 30% Hispanic people, very few black people. You know, maybe 2 or 3 people in my whole high school were black, and no bad. So yeah, I in Idaho there wasn't a ton of black people, but now there's a lot more black people around here. I live in Boise, so, and honestly, I guess in some ways society has kind of shifted since I've been an adult. I'm 39 now, and I can sense that a lot of people are more accepting, you know, with social media and stuff. I have a lot of friends at church that are black. One of my best friends is black, actually. His name's Roger. He's a really freaking good guy. Love the guy. We get along. We freaking get into deep conversations. I mean, I've never even, the thought has never crossed my mind that he was any different. But I guess in some ways he was, well, he actually told me that his dad abandoned him as a kid. And he was, you know, had to fight for, well, I mean, his dad kind of didn't pay attention to him. I guess his parents were separated, and so he went back and forth as a kid to dad's house and mom's house, and honestly, he says that it was kind of a difficult childhood growing up. And he was a non-believer when he was a kid, or he was raised into an atheist home, but then later converted to Christianity. And so the bottom line is, so for me, as I'm weighing into this topic, going, what's happening in the world, the BLM movement, I'm going to say, yeah, they do matter. Black Lives Matter. They do matter. And honestly, I think that, and I heard it put just recently that all the cultures out there have special place in this reality that we're in. It does have each culture has a very special contribution, and I want to point that out. So I kind of want to wrap up this video with just saying this. I have been more open-minded now to the thought of this movement, and I just feel it like it reminds me of my marriage. If we don't communicate openly, eventually we're going to lash out and kind of talk. We're going to eventually have to come to a head and communicate at some point, whether it's now or later. So I think that we are. Say hi. Hi. Hi, puppy. Hi, puppy. So yeah. Anyways, I think that we have to communicate. We have to keep an open line of communication, and the BLM movement is communicating that they are not receiving equal opportunity, and I gotta pick up my little guy. Hi. Say hi. Hi.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
So
Hi.
if they don't feel like they're given opportunity, I am likening it to my situation I have at home, and I want my wife to feel included. And if she doesn't feel included, I have to figure out why. And I want the culture that my wife brings to the situation to feel inclusive. I want my culture to be included. And then as we bring our cultures to the relationship, we start to see the beneficial, attributes that we can actually contribute to the relationship. But as we bring our cultures together, sometimes they clash. I guess in some ways, these situations that we see in the world, such as Floyd being killed, right? And I'm gonna say that was one of the most disturbing videos I've seen. I'm kind of an anarchist because I don't like to see freaking police brutality. I think that there's a lot of freaking cops that don't belong in their role. But I think that there are individuals that are good-hearted people, so you can't really blanket everything. Not everything deserves a blanket identity. We are all individuals, and I'm creating an individual here by developing him up in the culture that I'm in my household. We have two different cultures that came together, and now he has his own culture now. It's the combination of the two cultures, my wife's and mine. So I think it's interesting, to say the least, and that's what makes America so amazing, is you have all these different cultures combined into one. It's like a marriage. Interesting. Yeah. And I believe that everybody has their contribution. I believe everybody should have equal rights. It's true. You know, this culture, or this nation, was founded on all men being created equal. And we all have the right to the pursuit of happiness. And I believe that that right should be exercised. And this is my way to exercise my right. First Amendment. You know, exercising the Second Amendment is protecting our people against tyranny. And tyranny has a way of creeping in. And that's one thing that we don't want. We don't want tyranny to creep in. So I'm going to leave it at that. I have more thoughts on it, but I was just kind of walking with my son around the neighborhood. I'm about to hit my house here. And anyways, I love you guys. I appreciate you hanging in there with me. We'll talk to you later.